Well, the other thing that we want to talk a little bit about too is Act 388. I know that a couple years ago you were a big advocate for looking at alternatives for property tax relief along with the chamber, and fell kind of on deaf ears as well as our arguments. Chambers out there espousing going back and looking at 388 and in its entirety, simply because of the pressures it's putting on public education, the business community, likewise, as well as our municipalities and county governments. Thoughts on where that may go down the road? I know the Tract Commission is prohibited from looking at that portion of it, but is there a possibility of looking at some type of reforms?
Well, I hope so. Let me give you a little history. I'm sure you know it, but viewers may not. I personally put up an amendment last year on the Tract Commission to reopen Act 388, let the Tract Commission look at 388. That was defeated by the leadership in the House. They didn't want to look at 388. I don't think you can have a review of the taxes in the state of South Carolina and call it comprehensive unless you put all the taxes on the table and take a look at it. And 388, so to speak, is the gorilla in the room that nobody's looking at. When we had a lot of unintended consequences when we passed 388. At the time, it sounded good, felt good. Everybody wanted to go home and say they were for property tax reduction. So we all did it. You know, they threw, for rural counties that I represent, they threw a little added incentive for us to vote for it by giving small rural counties $2.5 million guarantee.
Right.
So, you know, it was a real effort to bring everybody to the table and get a big vote for property tax relief, and that effort was successful, and now we are suffering through some of the unintended consequences. We put a huge burden on the business community because they are the only people that in rental property left for the counties to go tax when they need to. We put caps on. Let me give you one example. In education, we put a 3 mil cap on. Right. Well, in Calhoun County, a mill brings in about $50,000. So best case scenario, if you raise taxes, you get an extra $150,000 just by the redistribution formula that they want to kick in because of Act 388. Calhoun County would lose $500,000. So we'd be $350,000 short just because of a new formula that got put in place.
I think that's one of the real issues that kind of concerns businesses, that when you look at the effort that can be put back at the local level for EFA, Education Finance Act funding, you know, you're all of a sudden it's almost like reverse Robin Hood, where you're taking money from the poorer counties and giving it back to the richer counties, and some of the counties that have the capacity to raise taxes and raise the local effort now go getting monies at the expense of some of the rural counties that really don't have the capacity.
We don't, and we are being asked to pay the full tax increase and still come up short, and that's not fair. I'm very proud of that we got through the Proviso Subcommittee last week a freeze on that index of taxpaying ability. I hope we are successful in getting that passed through the House and the Senate. It buys us a little bit of time, but all we are doing is buying time. We're not fixing the problem. Right. And the only way to fix the problem is to take a really comprehensive look at the tax structure in South Carolina, find out what's working, what's not, and fix what's not working. And if 388 is causing us in the business community not to be able to grow and expand and create jobs, that's a problem, and we need to fix it.
Yeah. Talking about fixing another problem in the state, and you know, if you look at our tort system in South Carolina and our litigation limits, and you know, South Carolina doesn't rank very favorably when you start looking at other states from our litigation standpoint. Tort reform is on the radar in the House, should be coming out. What do you see the provisions of tort that the House will accept, and at least from the caucus's standpoint, your caucus is what we all support?
I think we will support fairness. We understand that we have to keep working at tort reform. I think you go back to check, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago we dealt with tort reform. Majority of Democrats at that point supported tort reform. Right. We understand that business is the engine that drives everything else.
Right.
If you don't have a robust business community, you don't have the taxes to
Right.
provide public education, health care, or anything else that we need. So we're going to look at fairness. I wouldn't say that we're going to be for or against any particular thing, but I will tell you that our caucus will be in a position that at the end of the day we will vote for what's going to help the business community go forward and create jobs, because that is our #1 goal this year, and we're not going to do anything that doesn't help the business community create jobs. Having said that, this whole tort debate is a moving target, as
Right.
you well know. 3 years ago, we were all getting pats on the back because we had fixed and done tort reform.
Right.
You know, now we're back 3 years later saying it's broken again. So I don't think we'll ever get the perfect
Yeah.
tort reform bill. I think it'll always be a work in progress, and we'll continue to make progress a little bit at a time.
Well, Mr. Ott, thank you for joining us
Thank
today.
you for
and,
having me.
Appreciate the comments, and we look forward to helping you define the issues in the House of Representatives and for our state. And likewise, if the chamber can be of assistance to you and your caucus, just please give us a yell. And once again, thank you for joining us.
I will, Otis, and I want everybody out there to know that the House Democratic Caucus stands ready to help the business community move forward in the state of South Carolina.